Hi folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today I've got another top 10 list for you. This time it's going to be my top 10 favorite two-player games. There's a few caveats to go along with that. For example, it has to be a game that I own, and I don't care about publication date. It could have been this year, could have been last year, could have been 10 years ago. You know, you get the idea. It has to be two players only. In rare cases, I think some of these games can be played with more than two players, but primarily it's a two-player game. I do list some honorable mentions, though, that support more than two players, but they work very well as two-player games, and I'll get into those reasons why. I'm actually preparing the article right now as we speak, so I'm going to use this screen here as a cheat sheet so I don't have to write it down, then read off a notebook. So let's just scroll down here. Top 10 two-player board games. And when I say top 10, I don't mean top 10 of all time. Again, it has to be a game that I've played. You can't claim something is the best if you haven't played everything out there. But this is top 10 favorite. There's a difference between top 10 and top 10 favorite. So keep that in the back of your mind. Anyway, scrolling down. Again, I'm still preparing the article, so it's not pretty yet. Top 10 two-player games. My number 10 was Star Realms. Now, I do have links to my YouTube channel for each of these, but I do have ads on them, and I don't want to click on them and have to make you sit through 15 seconds of each one. So on the separate tab, I'm just going to pull up my review of it, my written review. So Star Realms should be in here. There we go. All right, so Star Realms, really cool two-player deck building game. It's ages 12 and up, and the average play time is 15 to 20 minutes. I don't have a review of all of these games listed on here, and I apologize. I've been gearing more toward the video side of things lately, but most of these should have a written review out here. It's really, really fun. Basically, it's like any deck builder. You start with a basic set of like 10 cards. Each player starts with the same 10 cards. And with the currency that you're going to be using on these cards, you can buy cards from a community pool. And you're trying to do so much damage to your opponent's base or whatever it is. It's authority, is it? It's been a while. But yeah, each player gets like 50 authority or points or health or something like that. And you can use cards to attack your opponent. If he runs out of life, then game over. So yeah, it's just a really fun two-player game. If you like deck building games, then this is a two-player game. So let's close that one down, go back to my article. Capo di Capi, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's an Italian-themed game. Let's go up to C. In fact, if I do a Control F for find, Capo di Capi. There we go. And this is one that I did not do a full written review on, but I did do a video, as you can see here. Basically, as you can see just from the screenshot, I could play the video, but like I said, there's ads, and I don't want to make you sit through that. But as you can see here from just the thumbnail of the video, there's different boards that you and your opponent are going to be fighting for control over. And these different boards will get different victory point values as the game progresses. So you're going to be thinking, okay, well, I want to control this board, but this board over here is getting more victory points now, so maybe I should start going over here. And there's a lot of different things you can do, a lot of manipulation, dice manipulation. It's also push your luck in the sense that if you can't, I think when you roll your dice and you've already taken your actions at those locations, there is a chance that something bad could happen. So it's a really, really cool area control game with some push your luck elements. So go check out that one, Capo di Capi. Again, I've got videos out there too, but let's go ahead and check out. All right, number 8 is Quarsum. Again, I don't know if I did a written of this or not. Find out. I did. Okay, so as you can see from the picture here that I took, it's a two-player game, and you're trying to get your either blue cubes or your green cubes. One player is blue, one player is green, and you're trying to get them to the opposite end of the playing board. It's a 4x4 grid. If I scroll down, here we go. So in this case, green is pointing to the bottom right, and this green one's pointing to the top right. That's where they're trying to go. And you can flip these tiles, like you can only move on tiles of your starting color. So right now, the green ones can only move on white. Like, whatever tile you start on, that's the color that die has to stay on. You cannot go from white to black and black to white. So one of your actions is to try to flip a tile to the opposite side. Another one is to try and get one of your dice to move through dice rolls, which is really good. And the first player to get both dice home first wins. It's a really cool two-player game. It's quarsome. Let's close that one out and go to the next one. We've got Jaipur. I know I covered this one. Oops. Jaip. There we go. Man, I cover a lot of games. All right. Oh, wow. That's an older picture. Holy cow. Yeah, 2 players, ages 12 and up, average play time about 30 minutes. Sorry. He's a spitting image of his dad. What can I say? Without the beard. Although now he's sporting this Amish thing. Anyway, he's got this Amish beard thing. No mustache. It's just the undergrowth. Anyway, it's a really cool game. Lots of camels. Lots of camels. Basically, it's a set collecting game. You're trying to collect so much gold or silver cards or green cards, and as you do that, the first set that you collect is probably like worth the most. So if a player's collected on green already twice throughout the game, then the victory points that you earn for the third set isn't going to be as high. There's little tokens here along the side that you earn, and it starts with the highest victory points possible, and as players gain chips for handing in sets, the victory point numbers go down. So there's that, and you also get bonus points for turning in sets of 3, 4, 5. Camels let you trade cards with the community pool. Lots of different things. So Jaipur is an excellent, excellent, excellent two-player game. So go check that one out if you haven't already. What else do I got on here? Number 6, Jambo. Yeah, that's an older one that I've covered. It's cozy. That's economical in nature. Actually, it's right below it. There we go. Okay, buy low, sell high. Yeah, that's basically the name of the game. There's special actions that, like special workers that you can get that do special things, but for the majority, you're trying to earn a certain amount of gold before your opponent can. You've got a market that can only hold so many commodities, and you're trying to satisfy certain cards, turn those in, get more gold. So buy stuff low, sell high. That's what it is. There's some examples of cards here. I don't know if I can zoom in on this or not. But yeah, you've got your these are your commodities here. You can buy it for this, sell it for this, and there's some action cards. There's some market cards that you can get in addition to your home one so that you can hold more stuff. It's a really cool game. So go check that one out. And again, if you want to learn more about these games, again, my website has some information, as you can see. So go check it out. Let's close that one. Go to the next one. The Duke. The Duke. It's sort of like chess, but it's a different take on it. The Duke. All right, and basically, it's sort of like chess in the sense that you've got like your medieval pieces, but they're tiles. They tell you how they move, like the footman here. The Duke can slide in a complete direction this way and this way. But once you move a piece, you have to flip it to the other side, and it has different movement rules on the side. Think of it as chess, where the pawn doesn't always move straight, or take diagonally. Think about it that way. It's a really nifty kind of system that it's got going on there, because you got to sort of remember what's on the other side of this thing. If I move it here and then flip it, what can it do? And how can I use that to my advantage? Can my opponent get me in some way, So it's a really cool two-player chess-like game, but with a little bit more complex rule set. So that is the Duke. Number 4 is chess. Oldie but goodie. I don't know if I covered this or not. Chess articles. Oh, yeah, I did. Chess introduction, the king, the queen, the rook, the knight, the bishop. I could go for hours about chess, but I'm not going to do that. Chess is a two-player game. One's white, one's black. I don't know if my screen is flickering. Yeah, my picture down here is flickering. I apologize. I hate the NVIDIA Shadow Play system. I'm going to have to cut in a minute and then come back to it. But basically in this game, for those of you that don't know how to play chess, I apologize. But in chess, you're trying to capture your opponent's king, put him in checkmate. And to do that, you've got different pieces that can do different things. It's a wonderful strategic game. If you haven't played chess and want to learn how to play it, I've got some articles here. My YouTube channel has some instructional things, so go check that out as well. So that is chess, great two-player game. There's checkers for those of you that don't want to think too hard. Number 3 is Hive. It's an excellent abstract bug game. Let's see if I can find it here. Hive. I've got the Carbon edition myself. It comes with 2 extra pieces. I think it's the Ladybug and something else. I might have it here. The Ladybug and the Mosquito. They do special things. The Mosquito takes on the role of any piece it happens to be touching before it moves. Ladybug moves 2 spaces on top of other pieces. Basically, you've got the Queen Bee is what you're trying to protect. It's sort of like the king in chess. But your goal is to surround the enemy queen completely on all sides, and even if it's with your opponent's pieces. So you're trying to prevent your opponent from entrapping your queen while bringing your other pieces with different movement rules over to your enemy queen to surround it. Great 2-player game, abstract, like I said. Some pieces can move on top of others. Some there's also trapment rules where the hive has to be one entity. It cannot split into 2 separate entities. So if you move it, pieces can become trapped if they're forced to keep the hive together, which is really cool. Wow, that is an old picture of Vinny. Holy cow. Yeah, he definitely doesn't have any hair there. Well, besides the stuff on top of his head. Okay, so that was Hive Carbon Edition. I recommend that one. Although they do make a travel edition that it's a bit more travel friendly. Number 2 is Trambon. A little bit heavier, but it's a great 2-player game. Great 2-player game. I keep saying that, but it wouldn't be on the list if it wasn't a great 2-player game. So it's got a few different things about it. Let's see if I can refresh my memory. Okay, here's a quick picture of it. As you can see, let me click on the picture. Basically, you've got, you're trying to complete, so if you've ever played Lost Cities, you start with the low cards, like 2 and then 3, then 4, like of red. Like let's say you've got a handful of red cards. You have to start low and in ascending order go 2, then 4, then 5, 6. You can't go backwards once you start putting down like 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 2, 3, 4. And you're trying to score on these whenever, and you've got these middle terminal stations, and whenever so many cards are put into the center of the board by players, they end up scoring. That score, or that color ends up scoring based on how many cards you have at that location. I think one of the main things that I really like about this game is that the cards can be used for so many things, and that's where the strategy element comes into play. They can be used as money cards. They can be used as cards that you lay down in the middle in order to get colors to score. They can also be laid down here into your own personal train yards in order to try and earn points on said colors. So it's just there's so many options for the cards that you have in your hand, and that's one of the reasons why I like it so much. But Trambon, it's sort of like Lost Cities on steroids. And then number 1, speaking of Lost Cities, surprise, surprise. Let me bring that up real quick. Lost Cities. There's a board game and a card game. The card game supports 2. The board game supports 4. Now, there we go. Oh, that is an old picture of me and Carly. Holy cow. This must have been back in, wow, 2012. No wonder. Okay. Yeah, definitely 2012. But basically, it's sort of like there's 5 colors, and you've got a hand of cards. Let's see if I can zoom in on these pictures so you can actually see what's going on. You've got a hand of cards here, and there's 5 colors, and you're laying down expeditions. Whenever you lay down an expedition, you have to pay a point cost. So it's, I don't remember how much it is off the top of my head. There's rules, again, in my articles, but your goal is to try and make up for that cost by laying down cards in ascending order, just like in Trambon. And so this would be like 2 points plus 3 plus 5 plus 6 plus 8 plus 9. So I've scored. And then these little handshake cards, you get like double or triple or quadruple the points at the end of the game on that set that you've done. And that could even be negative if you end up not having enough cards there, so you have to be careful. You can also discard to a community pool here. Basically, it's play a card. It's play a card, then pick up a card. That's how easy the game is. But you can pick up a card either from the deck or from the community discard pile in the center of the table here. So yeah, Lost Cities, the card game, excellent 2-player game. Doesn't take that long at all to play whatsoever. And that was my top 10. Now, I do have some honorable mentions I want to quickly go through. There's Ket, which is a laser game. I don't know if I want to go through all of them here. It's going to take a while to get through. If I can find Ket real quick. There we go. But yeah, it's sort of like chess. Oh my God, it's this old 2012. That is an old picture of Vinny. Oh my goodness. He's so thin. Oh my goodness. All right. Yeah, it's a laser game. You use there's lasers that shoot out of the board here, and your goal is to try and hit your opponent's Pharaoh piece. If you manage to do that, you win the game. You can bounce it off mirrors. If you hit the back of another piece that isn't a mirror, then it's eliminated. So you're maneuvering pieces around, trying to see if I have a better picture. There's okay. That's sort of there's the thumbnail of the video that I made. As you can see, there's mirrors all over the place. If I were to hit this button, the laser would shoot out here, hit this mirror, hit this mirror, go up, hit this mirror, and then hit this side of the board there. And you can move these pieces around to then adjust the laser that shoots out of these two places here. And you're trying to manipulate the laser to get it to where you want it to go. Really cool game. You've also got Mr. Jack in New York. It's okay. It's not my favorite deduction game, but one player plays as Jack the Ripper, the other one plays as the detective, and there's a list of people on the board, and you're trying to figure out through a light and dark system. Mr. Jack? Did I not type that right? No. Mr. Jack. Oh, okay, let's just try. Oh, there it is. Let's see if I can find. There we go. Yeah, so basically, you've got all these people. They have different abilities. But at the end of a round, it's been a while since I've played this, mind you, but at the end of the round, the detective gets to ask, not really ask, but the detective the Jack the Ripper will have to reveal whether or not his character can be seen or not. And that usually means you can be seen if you're next to somebody or if you're next to one of these lampposts. If you're by yourself or anything like that, you're considered like, I don't want to say invisible, but you're on like a dark side kind of thing. And through process of elimination, Mr. Jack and the detective will move 2 people each every round. And through process of elimination, the detective is going to try and figure out who the opponent is or who Jack the Ripper is. And then try and catch him before he moves off the board or whatever the case may be. It's been a while. Like I said, I've got rules here in case you want to learn about it. And I think I have a video here too. Yeah, I do. Okay. Again, old picture. Holy cow, that's an old picture. John Cena. Doesn't fit him anymore. All right. Back to this. All right, 101. That is a very interesting game. It's different. Very, very different. All right. 10. I don't know if I did a full review or if it was just a video one or what. I like my intro. Don't bother trying to figure out. That's in binary. Don't try and figure out what that means because I don't. Yeah, basically, it's an area control game. There's 5 rows. One's worth 10 points. One's worth 20. One's worth 30. One's worth 40. One's worth 50. And the more that you have of your number in that row, you control it. And that's what you're trying to do. Certain cards have special abilities, like allow you to add cards to certain rows or to flip a card over to the other side, different things like that. But you're just basically trying to control these 5 rows, and the player that can do that wins the game. It's very simple, but it's also really cool. And again, I've got a tutorial video out here in case you want to learn more about it. Review video, whatever you want to call it. 101. Next one, we've got Patchwork. Patchwork is a cool abstract game. I've got it on the computer as well. It recently had a digital release. Patchwork, here it is. 2 players, ages 8 and up, average play time 30 minutes. Yeah, there's a quick. It's sort of like Tetris. You've got these you've got these quilt pieces, and you can only take from 3 in front of you. Like there's a pawn here, and you can only take one of the 3 that are in front of the pawn. And the buttons, whenever you pass the buttons on, there's a score track here that you're going to move your 2 pieces up. But whenever you move it past a button, you score that many buttons that are on your quilt. And those buttons allow you to buy these pieces. Some pieces are cheap, some are expensive, some bring you up the track more quickly than others, so there's a little bit of strategic element to that. And you're trying to fill up your quilt as much as possible, but you also score points for having a lot of buttons on your board too. So it's a really cool two-player Tetris-like game. What else do we got? Quicks. That can support more than 2 players. But again, in honorable mentions, I did say that I would be mentioning games that can support more than 2. It's very simple dice rolling. You're trying to scratch off as many numbers as possible. It's just like you start with the red and the yellow 2s. You're going to be trying, and you have to go in lowest to high or high to low. Like you can't go backward. So you're trying to cross these numbers off in ascending order or descending order, depending on what color you're looking at. And you're trying to, not skip any along the way. You can take actions during other players' turns. As you see, there's dice of different colors. And there's more rules, obviously, to this, but it's really cool. Very colorful. Makes a great 2-player game. It can also be... it's a great travel game, too. So go check that one out. It's Quicks. QWIXX. Quicks. Another honorable mention, Stratego. Now, it doesn't have to be the Fire and Ice variant. The Fire and Ice variant I have, the pieces do special things, but regular Stratego will work just as fine. Stratego, each piece has a number assigned to it. Now, the different Stratego variants do it differently. In some Stratego variants, the higher number wins the battle when 2 pieces collide. In others, the lower number wins. And in the old school version that I remember, you had like the Admiral and the Marshal, and the lower number won. In other games, in the more recent ones I've played, like the higher numbers win. But again, it all depends on what version you have. So if I can find Stratego real quick while I'm thinking about it here. Stratego, where are you? There we go. This is the Fire and Ice variant here. Kind of bad pictures. Okay, based on the screen, it's hard to see. This is the Fire and Ice. I got this at, I think, Walmart or something. But anyway, as you can see along the bottom here, each character does something different. You don't have to play it that way. You can play regular Stratego. But basically, you move 1 piece on your turn, and when 2 pieces collide, the higher or the lower number wins, depending on what variant you're playing. The Spy unit can capture the most powerful unit. Like, there's usually 1 powerful unit. Like, in this case, I think it's the Dragon. In this game, it's a 10. Even though I told you, like, the old school version of the game, the 1 was the best piece. In this game, it's the 10 is the best piece. It can capture almost anything. Pieces of equal value cancel each other out, and they both die. But you've also got 1 piece that can, like, only go after the best piece in the game. So, yeah, it's a great strategic game, and your goal is to find the enemy flag before your opponent does. There's also bombs or traps, whatever you want to call them, depending on the variant that you're playing. You run into those, you die, unless you have like a miner or somebody that can disable them. There's always 1 piece number that can take care of those things. That's Stratego. Go check that one out. The Rose King, that's a 2-player game. Rose King. See if I can come down here. There we go. That's a nice picture. I don't think I took that one though. Huh, I can't see him to zoom. I can't seem to click that. It's weird. Anyway, I don't know if you can see it or not, but basically you put a piece down on your turn, and the kicker is that there's this crown piece that's always on the board. And where you can put your piece is determined by the cards that you have in front of you. Like, you get 5 of these cards or whatever. I think you can get more than that or less, whatever. But there's a deck of cards that you're going to be drawing from. And then you're going to be using those cards and then counting so many spaces and observing the compass that's on said card and then putting a piece on that location and then moving the crown, to the next available or to the next appropriate spot. So this crown is going to be moving around the board, but where you can actually put your crown or your rose pieces will be determined by the cards that you have and where the crown is at that point in time. So that is the Rose King, really cool area control kind of game. What else do I got? Dead Man's Draw. There's a digital version as well as a... in fact, I think the digital version came first. It's a rare case, but it did happen. Let's see. Dead Man's Draw. There we go. Yeah, I just did. Here's the video game adaptation of it that I covered a while ago, and then here's the board game version that I covered more recently. Basically, it's a push your luck game. You draw cards. Each card has a special ability. You don't have to play with special abilities if you don't want to. The board game also includes special abilities that characters can have. But anyway, you're pushing your luck, and you're trying not to draw the same type of card on your turn. Like, here's a Kraken here. If I draw another Kraken as I'm drawing cards, I automatically bust and I lose everything. And then as long as I don't bust, I can decide to stop before drawing another card, keep those cards, and then whatever the highest card value is of that card type, it goes on top of my pile. So if I were to stop right now, this 6 would go on top of the 3 because it's higher. The 5 would go in a separate pile. The Kraken here, that's a 6 that goes on top of the Kraken of 3. The 7 map goes by itself. You get the point. But basically, you're trying to get as many cards as possible, the highest valued cards possible, and then those cards that are on top, you add those together, and that's your final score. So really cool game. Dead Man's Draw. Machi Koro can be played with more than 2 players. It's sort of like Settlers, but in the sense that you can collect resources on your turn, or money in this case. I got the harbor expansion as well. But yeah, basically, here's a quick look. There's a community pool. But your objective, there's train station, shopping mall, amusement park, radio tower. You're trying to flip those out. You're trying to build these, basically, by earning money. How do you earn money? Well, that's where these community cards come into play. You're going to be buying those. A player rolls a die on their turn, and some cards, you can actually earn money on other players' turns. And some cards even force you to pay others, or others will pay you, different things like that. And some of them have... just they sort of work together. So you're going to look at the available community pool and see what you can buy based on the money that you have. And then as you build these 4 buildings here, you'll unlock special abilities that you can use for the rest of the game. The harbor expansion, I do recommend. It adds more card types and a different way of setting the game up. I don't think I have any pictures, but I do have a tutorial video out here. So go check that out. That's the harbor. I don't have the millionaire expansion, so keep that in the back of your mind, but I do have the harbor expansion. All right. Quadropolis. Yep, that's a great, it's not 2-player only, but it's a really cool SimCity-esque kind of game. There's Quadropolis here. Basically, each player has their own player board. I don't know if I can open. It's too hard to see. And it's hard to see too. Okay, well, each player has their own player board. There's a community pool of tiles, and you're going to be putting these contractors down to collect these tiles to put into your grid. And each of these tile types score in different ways. So the harbor tiles that are blue have to be put into a row. This tile type likes to be next to this tile type. Residential zones like to be next to parks. Residential zones like to be stacked 4 high or whatever. The higher you stack it, the more points you get. This commercial zone likes to be next to this, or you get the idea. So you've got to maneuver your tiles that you're collecting. The kicker though is that there's numbers on your contractors, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Not only does that determine what row or how many spaces you count in whenever you're collecting a tile, but it also determines what row or column that you can build on. So if you use a 3 to collect a tile, you have to put it in the 3rd row or the 3rd column. And that's where you have to put it. So there's some strategy there too. Quadropolis, really cool. Star Wars X-Wing miniatures. Vinny and I have played over 100 games at this point. Excellent. I know I have, excuse me, I'm trying to hold back a burp. Ugh, disgusting. Star Wars X-Wing. There we go. Like all miniature games, very expensive to get into all these miniatures. But if you like Star Wars and you're familiar with the ships, the lore, like the X-Wings, if you know what X-Wings are, Y-Wings, A-Wings, TIE Fighters, TIE Interceptors, TIE Bombers, all those ships, like if you've played X-Wing or TIE Fighter, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, X-Wing Alliance on the computer back in the day, and you were familiar with the lore, this is the game for you. I mean, there's pilot cards, special cards that you can upgrade to your ships, named pilots that have special abilities. You can take actions. use these maneuver templates to move around. I've got so many. It was a rare game of me and AJ. I'm surprised AJ was playing. Huh. Anyway, but yeah, you can do like K turns. I've got a gaming mat now. I actually customized my own, not my own, but I bought a mat to play on. If you haven't already, go check out my playlist. It's over 100 videos at this point. It's ridiculous. It's if you've never heard of X-Wing before, binge watch it. You won't regret it. As long as you like Star Wars. If you don't like Star Wars, then don't do it. Otherwise, you'll be bored to tears. But Star Wars X-Wing Miniature is a great game. It can be played as a team, I think, multiplayer, but generally it's 2 players. What else here? The Last Spike. This game reminds me of Acquire, but I like this game better than Acquire, surprisingly. It's not as complicated. There's still stock cards. Let's see if I can open this up. There we go. But yeah, basically, you're trying to go from, all the players start here on the right, and whenever a line is built from the right side all the way over to Sacramento, the game ends. These tiles are generally not here. Like, the board starts off empty, but players will be getting these black tiles in their hand. They spend money to put them down. Whenever a connection is made from one city to another, say from like red to green, that's when that scores. And then players get money based on how many stock cards they have. So Dodge City, for example, if let's say that red and green make a connection by these 4 tiles being put down here, by any player can do it. The cards that you have here determine, let's say you have 2 green cards. That's 14,000. So you would get $14,000. You also would score red. Let's say you had 3 red cards. It's 30,000. So you collect 30,000. Now it's not paper money. It's chips. So white, red, and blue each have different monetary values. It's like Acquire, but excellent game. Go check it out. The Last Spike. What else we got here? Zombie dice. Very simple game. You roll dice, push your luck, and you're trying to score as many brains as possible. Roll shotguns, bad. Roll brains, good. And 3 shotgun blasts, and you're out for the round. You lose everything. Push your luck game. I'm not going to bother going into much more detail than that. You know, it can support more than 2 players. It's a great travel game, but yeah, go check out Zombie Dice. Again, there's a lot of material here in case you haven't seen it. This is actually my first video that I covered. This is the first board game that I covered on a video. This was the first one. It was a different format back then, that's for sure. But it was a lot of fun. So Zombie Dice. Let's see what else. Ticket to Ride, the card game. The board game is a little bit more. The reason I chose the card game over the board game for this list is because the board game is bigger and the card game is a little bit more compatible, and it's more travel friendly. The card game is more compact, less complicated, I think. There's slightly different rules. Just for the heck of it, I'll just show you the board game anyway, and then I'll show you the card game. This is wow, this is old. Carly must have been like 12 or 11 in this picture. There's Lucy. But yeah, you're basically trying to complete routes on a board. It's very busy, kind of, when the game gets going. The card game, on the other hand, is a bit, like I said, a little bit more compact. But Ticket to Ride, the board game, don't get me wrong. Ticket to Ride is one of the best games that you could possibly buy. Casual board gamers, if you're not into board games at all, this is where you want to start. This is where you want to start. But the card game, let's see here. So basically, there's a community pool, just like in Ticket to Ride. But players get ticket cards, and I do have a review here. But players are trying to. It's a little different. Instead of having a board where you're completing lines with plastic trains, you're putting down cards of a certain color. And on the beginning of your turn, you take 1 from each colored pile that you have in front of you, put it into your score pile. At the end of the game, you take what's in your score pile, compare that with what the ticket requirements are, and then score those tickets. So you're looking at your tickets saying, okay, I need a total of 4 blue to complete all these tickets. I need a total of 4 red to complete all these tickets. You can get more tickets throughout the game, of course, but that's the gist of it. So it plays a little bit more differently than Ticket to Ride, but it's still a pretty awesome game. So Ticket to Ride or Ticket to Ride the card game, both really fun two-player games. Ticket to Ride as a two-player game, the board game, there's more room to maneuver. Like in a 3 or 4 player game of Ticket to Ride, there's more trains and more tracks being more routes being taken. Whereas in a 2-player game, you've got the freedom to do and go wherever you want. So that's why I recommend as a 2-player game the card game over the board game. But still, Ticket to Ride the board game, excellent. Forbidden Island, great cooperative game. Forbidden. There's Desert as well, but Island is easier in my opinion. Forbidden Desert is the sequel to Forbidden Island. Forbidden Desert is a bit more complicated though. But Forbidden Island, basically, you're trying to... Oh, that's an old picture. You're trying to... you're on this island together, you and your other players. And you're trying to collect 4 treasures and then escape the island before it sinks. Like in Pandemic, which is sort of like this. It's sort of like a Pandemic Junior, if you will. Pandemic is a game... If you haven't heard of Pandemic, Pandemic is... There are 4 viruses threatening to kill everybody. And the players have to work together to cure these viruses and eliminate before the pandemic occurs and everyone dies. Well, this is sort of like Pandemic Junior. Pieces of the board will sink to the ocean bottom if players don't clear the water off these tiles. But your goal is to get the 4 treasures and get to the exit or the helicopter landing pad, whatever, before before everything sinks. So pretty cool game. It's cooperative in nature. It supports more than 2 players. The Builders Middle Ages, sort of like Splendor, and I'm gonna cover both the Builders Middle Ages and I've got Splendor next. They both work the same way. Basically, you are going to be using some sort of monetary system or token, whatever, to acquire cards, and you can use those cards to then acquire more cards, and then you can use you're basically gaining assets. If you're an accountant or think like an accountant, think of them. It's an asset game. You're collecting assets to use to help you buy other cards that are of greater value later down the line. Splendor is a very beautiful looking game. The chips are very heavy, and I'll go ahead and show you pictures. Let's close these tabs down. Splendor. Yeah, very beautiful game. There's a nice little picture there I took. But basically, yeah, there's 3 different rows. The bottom row is easiest to get. You're going to use these chips on the right-hand side here, turn those in, and the cost of the card is on the left-hand side. So 1 blue, 1 green, 1 red, 1 black is what you need to turn in order to get this card. Now, the gem on the top is your asset. So you can keep that card, but you can say, I've got 1 white gem all the time now. I've got 1 white gem. It counts as a white chip. So if you have 1 white chip in this card, you've technically got 2 white gems that you can use to buy other cards. So eventually you'll be able to buy these more expensive ones. And the first player to get to 15 points, I think it is, wins. You can also, there's nobles up here. You can collect those. They're worth 3 points each. If you are the first player to get 4 red gems or 4 green gems, that's on the top right-hand corner of these cards. That's Splendor. And then, again, Builders, the Middle Ages. There we go. The Builders, Middle Ages. Very similar to that. Here we go. I took this picture as well. There's a community pool. You're going to be hiring these masters, craftsmen, apprentices. They have, there's 4 different resources. I think it's stone, I think it's wood, tools, and iron. I'm not sure what that is, metal maybe. But you're going to be using people to build these larger squared tiles, and they're worth victory points and money. So, but some of them are tools that you can use, like your people, to get better cards. And as you acquire more people from the community pool, you get to keep those. Like when you hire them, they don't go away. They go into your personal stock. So basically your workforce is getting larger and larger and larger. And then you can assign those cards to buy more buildings. And then there's also, again, there's a limit there, a victory point limit. So really cool game. Again, it's Splendor and the Builder's Middle Ages. There's also the Builder's Antiquity, I think it is, but I don't have it. It's very similar. It came after this one, and it's a little bit more complicated from my understanding, but it plays roughly the same. I'm going to have to get that at some point because I really like this game. Stockpile. It is one of the few stock market games that don't make me pull my hair out in frustration because the rules are so complicated. Like, if you ever played Crude Oil, that's a very long game. But anyway, Stockpile is a very cool economic game that plays in like 45 minutes, maybe 60 minutes if you're new to the game. But what's cool about it is that, I did not take this picture, but I think this was the developer's picture. But basically, there's different companies that will increase or decrease in stock price as you play the game. And you'll get stock cards. You can turn those stock cards in for whatever the stock price is now. You can hold on to those stock cards and then hope that the stock splits, meaning the price gets so high that it goes off the track and then splits, and then your stock cards are worth like double, which is really good. So yeah, there's that, and there's also a bidding system where you bid for stacks of cards. Players can contribute to these stacks, one face up, one face down, but you don't know for sure what's under a stack, and you're going to be bidding on it with the money that you're collecting in between each round. Some stacks, will contain stocks that you want. Others contain stocks that you don't want. Another cool thing about the game is that each player knows what one company is going to do in terms of whether or not it's going to go up or down in stock price, which is really cool. So this player knows that this company is going to go up. This player knows that this company is going to go down. Each player's insider information. So there's an added element to that too. Stockpile, excellent economic game. Supports more than 2 players though. So it's not true 2 players, but great 2-player game. CV, excellent 2-player game. It's like Civilization, sort of. Like, it's, no. It's like I don't want to say Civilization. It's like the game of life with dice. That's a better comparison. CV. CV. Did I not cover it? This might be one of the rare games that I did not do an article for. Well, anyway, it's on my YouTube channel, and I could go there if I wanted to, but again, I've got ads. CV is you've got early childhood, like adulthood, and then elderly cards, and the game goes through them deck by deck. And each player rolls dice, and there's different categories like jobs, there's life events, different things like that, and each of these events give you special bonuses, but only one card from each category can be on top at any given time. So you have to decide, okay, is this card going to go on the bottom of the stack where the effect won't come into play? But at the same time, at the end of the game, the more you have of that color, the more points you get. Except job cards, you have to replace on top all the time. It's like switching jobs in real life. You can't you can't take a new job and then continue working at your old one. It doesn't work that way. So there are certain life event cards that you can put on the bottom of the deck or your stack, personal stack, or you can put them on top and use the new effect. And then again, there's 3 different decks that players will go through, but you have to roll dice and then use the die faces to buy the cards from the community pool. Really cool game that way. All right, the game is next. That's a cooperative one. Pull that up. I've mentioned this a few times as of late, so you guys should be familiar with it. Well, that doesn't help. The game? Star Trek the game. That's not it. The game. Terrible CEO. It's just terrible. I don't know why you name the game the game. Try and find it. Google the game and see what you get. Anyway, it's a cooperative game. This is one of those ones where I did a video instead of a full article, but 4 stacks. 2 start at 1, the other 2 start at 99. The ones go in ascending order, the 99s go in descending order. Players have to lay down at least 2 cards minimum every turn in order to still win. And your goal is to get through the entire deck. So you're trying to, but you can't say out loud what your hand is. You can only point to like a pile and say, I really like this pile, indicating I plan to play a really good card on this pile on a future turn. Don't touch it. but you may have no choice because you're forced to play so many cards every turn. And sometimes what you have in your hand, you have to screw over other players. It's one of those things. But the game is a really cool cooperative game. Supports more than 2 players though, but it plays well with 2. Star Trek 5-Year Mission, excellent cooperative game as well. Again, plays more than 2 players, but can also be played 2 players. In fact, this is, it doesn't say it on the box that it can be played with 2 players, but my variant that I came up with plays well. It's just basically each player controls 2 players each, and it's a set. They're each a separate entity. So it's sort of like a 4-player game, but 2 players are controlling 2 each, is what it is. Star Trek 5. There we go. Fleet Captain. Okay, 5-year missions. There we go. Really like this game. But basically, you and your friend Kirk's overacting. I love it. Spock, where is the Enterprise? Yeah. Anyway, dice pool. You've got your usual card. You can also flip this board over and play as next gen. So instead of Kirk and Spock and them, you got Picard, Riker, Data, Worf, Geordi. Anyway, but yeah, each one has a special ability, and basically you're trying to prevent these events from dominating. Each column can handle a total of 3 events. Anything beyond that, and you automatically start failing missions. And if you fail so many missions, it's game over for you and your friends. You have to use dice that you're rolling in order to solve these cards. And as you can see, these cards have different requirements on them. This card requires a red 3, a white 3, not a white 3, but a 3 of any color. And then any die that has a value of 5 or lower. Some are timed, as indicated by the top right-hand corner. Some have like yellow alert symbols on them, meaning that whenever you draw this card, you have to draw a yellow alert card on top of it. Some give you special abilities, like this one on the right. If you complete it, there's 2 dice here that gives you, I don't remember what the thing is, but it's a special ability that you can use for one time only. So yeah, that is Star Trek. It's a great, even though it's not advertised as, it's 3 to 7 players, but it can be played as a 2-player game. I think it's an excellent 2-player game. Vinny and I have played this with 2 players, and controlling two people each, not hard to do at all. Not hard to do at all. Dragonheart, it's an oldie but goodie. It's been a while since I played it, but if I remember correctly, there's different spaces on the board, and did I spell that wrong? Dragon Heart? Dragon Run? Oh, it's one word. Okay. There it is. Okay, so if I can pull this up. Here we go. So yeah, this board here, each player has the same cards in their deck. One player gets red, one player gets green. This is only a 2-player game. And you're going to be laying down, you're trying to complete sets. And you're sharing a board. So if you put down 2 archers, for example, you have to hope that your opponent does not have a 3rd archer, and then put that down and complete the set and then take it. By completing sets, you can then take, you'll see arrows pointing to different places. So if you complete 3 archers and have them here, you can then take whatever cards happen to be on this dragon space up here, well, whatever that is, and then whatever cards might be down below the board here. 3 ships, I think, you just collect those. That's also signal the end of the game. After 3 sets of those, the game ends. But yeah, basically it's an area control game with a deck of cards, but you're also trying to psych out your opponent by laying down sets in the hope that your opponent is not going to complete those sets. So that's Dragonheart, 2 players. Plays pretty quickly. Noir is really cool. It can be played a number of different ways, but it's a deduction game. One player, the variant I like, one player is the killer, and the other is the detective. And each don't know who the other is. But you've got this grid of cards, and the detective is trying to figure out who the killer is, and the killer is trying to kill so many people. Basically, as the killer, you can kill anyone around you, and the board will shift throughout the game too. So you're trying, as the detective, you're trying to keep track of who's died and who was around them when they died. So it's an interesting deduction game, which is really cool. I don't know why my cat is crying behind me. Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, it's a great deduction game. The board will shift, rows and columns will shift as the game is played. The detective has to have a good memory and keep track of who has died when and who was around these people when these other people died, so that you can narrow down who the killer actually is. And if the killer actually kills the detective player, again, they don't know who each other is, the killer will win that way too. So there's that. So yeah, that is Noir. And again, there's multiple ways to play that one. And then lastly, there's Battle Line. It's been a while since I've played this one, but it plays with regular cards of all things. Battle Lines. Did I not spell that right? Battle Line. There we go. All right. So, yeah, I bought this one. I didn't do a full article on it, but basically you've got a row of pawns. I don't know if you can see it in the thumbnail, but there's a row of pawns. And you're trying to capture 3 of these pawns in order to win, I think. It's been a while. On each pawn, you can assign a total of 3 cards. The better hand, straight, flush, 3 of a kind, flush, straight, or on any particular pawn allows it to be controlled by that player. So it's sort of like poker, and it's an area control. You're trying to put down these great hands on these different pawns in an attempt to capture these pawns. But you don't want to put down hands too soon on a pawn, for fear that, I mean, there are special abilities in the game that can really mess you up. So it's timing. It's a little bit of luck, because you're trying to draw really good hands to put down on certain spaces and outdo your opponent. Once your opponent starts a hand on one pawn, you go, oh, he's going for a straight. That means maybe I can go for this, straight flush kind of thing and beat him out. That kind of thing. So it's an interesting poker-esque kind of area control game. Really cool. That's Battle Line. And there we go. I just went through the entire list. I will have the article posted sometime after I get this video sorted out. These, again, not all of these are 2-player games, but all of them work well as 2 players. There's more that I wanted to add to this list. I really did. So many good games out there, but this should get you started if you are looking for something along the lines of a 2-player game and you're new to the world of board gaming. So with that said, if you guys haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you can keep up to date with any new content I'm going to publish. This is Vince. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.